One live from the Dirt Bike Test Shop Garage. This is Tech Talk Taco Tuesday number 10. It's amazing we've done 10 of these things. So we are going to get going here. I've got a few different questions that we sourced from the post that we put out this morning on Facebook. Also pulled a couple off of the YouTube feed from our last Tech Talk Taco Tuesday number 9. I'm going to adjust the camera here in a second and get other couple little things sorted out. This janky little radio show. I just want to make sure that everybody can hear the sound okay, but there's a little bit of a delay right now. So let me know if the sound is good, and then we'll go from there. So the camera, I think I can get it here. Let's see. It's gonna actually kick. Oh no, you know what? That's not the camera. Let's do it let's get it like over here, like that. I think it'll be better. Okay. Then I move over here, and then I can see my computer and read my notes and do all the stuff I'm supposed to do. Okay, so we've got it sounds great. So somebody must not have hearing problems like a lot of my other friends. Good, sound is good. It works. Awesome. Okay, so this one, I'm solo on this one. We're looking at trying to get other people coming in. I got my peebs, so I'm good there. No tacos tonight. We had a tri-tip steak salad, something or other. Not too bad. We'll go do tacos on Thursday night. We have Taco Thursday here in Pahrump as well, so we'll head down to Ramiro's and hit that up. Come and say hi if we're out there. So I have my notes, and I got an interesting question from somebody based off of our 250 off-road comparison, and the question was, it was basically, sound issues aside, will a Honda CRF 250 RX outperform a 250X with good suspension mods and opened up airbox on tight trails? Or could the 250 RX become a handful? So I had to think about that for a minute. So they're comparing the bike that's, how old is a CRF 250X? Probably 15 years old with something that's brand new. And in reality, those two bikes are kind of similar. They have the Honda characteristics. It's a really light feeling, light handling bike. The difference is I think the RX, just off the top of my head, the RX, because it's fuel injected and it makes more peak power, it seems like it's going to be like more of a racy bike. But like we mentioned in our test, when you start riding that bike at like off-road pace and more trail riding stuff, you'll find that the power delivery and the torque of that motor is actually pretty good. Like something that we complain about when we talk about racing motocross with it is kind of really a high-strung top-end motor. Well, the ignition mapping and the changes they made to that bike make it actually really good on the trail. I don't think it becomes a handful. It's definitely suspended a little bit stiffer. It's more of a race bike, but that's where everything's going. Even KTM takes their motocross bike and turns it into basically, an off-road bike, and that's what we're all riding these days, is kind of tamed down motocross bikes for the trail. So I don't think it's going to be a handful. I think, in fact, especially if you're a heavier guy, it just means you don't have to have the suspension revalved and worked on, because it works pretty good off-road for someone at my weight. It's just fine. And then the questions kind of kept coming. It was like, will the 250 RX run the San Felipe SF, is what he said, San Felipe hoops well? Nothing should ride through. It's like, why would you even want to go there? I mean, that's it. Just but a lot of our desert race courses and stuff, and some of our beat open areas and stuff, you have whoops like that. Not like the car buggy bumps that are out there, but it'll do it as good as any other bike. But when you're on a 250, a lot of times they just don't pull hard enough for, unless you're really running them up in the RPM to go through that stuff. And it definitely would be better than the old 250X. That's for sure. Yeah, can it hold the front wheel up and pull through the hoops? Yeah, normal hoops, sure, but you're just going to be at a really high RPM. That's just the way you ride a 250F. No higher than it would be on the older one. And will a 250RX stay close to an old 450X on Baja 2-track roads? No. That's it. No. It's a 250. They run good, and but it really, and here's the funny thing about that. If you're the kind of guy that like lugs your 450 and you're expecting the torque to kind of to constantly pull you and lug you along, and you ride a 250 the same way, absolutely not. But a good rider, a person that knows how to use and manipulate the power band, can run the 250 at a higher RPM and get the power that they need by using ours. It's never going to have the same amount, but this is what I tell people. That same thing when you ask me, I need more power, I need a pipe, or I need, I need to do this, and I need to take this off. I need to take these reed valves out of my intake track and my KTM emissions bike and all this stuff. So I always say, so when you're riding that bike at peak RPM and the throttle's wide open, that's when you need more power? Or do you need more power when you're at like a third throttle and you're expecting it to like roll on or something? And then it's like, well, if you need more power there, it's real simple. I'll give you the free answer to get more power. Turn the throttle farther. And when you start turning the throttle farther and you run out of throttle cable, then you start needing to look at ways to modify your motorcycle. And that's the power part. When you start talking about, I need a certain kind of power characteristic to make the bike work for the way I ride, that's a whole different kind of thing. So hopefully that answers your questions. The Honda 250 RX, I think out of those three 250s, would it be my first choice? And the Yamaha is really good everywhere, but I think if I were doing like high speed Baja desert racing stuff, I think it would probably be the KTM. Has a better motor for that kind of stuff, but I think the Honda chassis is better at that. So take that for what we will. That's why we write all that stuff on that website we put out. We write all that information out where it's spelled out, and I don't have to kind of like crunch my brain, which only works at half speed when I'm trying to read notes and talk and things like that. So hopefully that answers your question. I think I saw some questions pop up across the screen and the feed there. I'll try to get back to those a little bit later. Michael Pounds asks, can you comment on upper body protection? What type of gear do you use for dual sport versus single track? So when I was, I'll just go up, on me. When I was racing, I was always a chest protector guy. I would always wear like an HRP, which was a company that had a chest protector that had elevated shoulder pads on it. And it was worn outside of the jersey, and I always wore that when I was racing because it had a good front and back, plastic protection and some kind of softer foam padding. And it was mostly about the plastic parts in case I went skidding across the ground. They provided some impact resistance from things like handlebars or foot pegs or rocks, and then, the foam did a little bit. But stuff has gotten so much better now. And even today when I rode, I just wore a Climb, I'm trying to think of the name, Aggressor or something. They have a new kind of technical undergarment. It's like a net, like you've seen Alpine Stars and Dainese and companies like that have. And it has a really interesting foam inside of it that actually still feels like really soft. But you hit it, and I know because I kind of have a bruise right here because I haven't crashed, but I decided to test it. So I took my boot and kind of started whacking myself on the tit here, because it's this nice soft. I felt it because I wanted to check to see how it worked, and so I did it a few times with the padding on, and I took it off and whacked myself maybe twice with the boot before I stopped, and it works. So how do we test stuff here at Dirt Bike Test? Well, we invent ways. So but there's that. I know, and now they're coming out, and I saw some of I think their production now, but like last year, Andrew Short and Ricky Brabeck, when they were training at her, they had the Alpine Stars air vests that they wear underneath So it's like one of those technical vests, but it actually has the airbags inside of them. And we never saw one go off. And did we see one go off? You've seen it at the road racetrack, yeah. But I haven't seen one go off off road riding, but they're wearing those. So there's all kinds of stuff. In my world, when I'm trail riding, I don't wear a lot of like upper body protection or like really anything too protective. A lot of times I'll wear a jacket, and when I wear the jacket, sometimes I leave the elbow pads in. Sometimes I leave the shoulder pads in. It really depends on what I'm riding, and I'm not one of those guys that quote dresses for the crash, because I try to ride so that I won't crash. Now I'm never going to prevent that, but it's like a personal decision, and sometimes the protective stuff can get in the way or interfere with your ability to ride properly. So I've seen guys so geared up that they can't move. So it's really it's kind of up to you. There's lots of cool stuff. Alpine Stars makes some really nice. They have like 5 or 6 different versions of kind of body protection, chest protectors. Some of them are meant to be under the jersey. So there's quite a bit of different options that you can go with there. That's my comment on it. But for dual sport and single track, a lot of times if I'm kind of going to do faster stuff, I will leave the protection that's in some of the jackets in the jacket and go there. It's really rare that I kind of actually do a lot of extra stuff, but that's me. If you feel like you're going to crash, I would wear more. It's that simple. I don't feel like I'm going to crash. I never want to feel like I'm going to crash. I wouldn't. If I thought I was going to crash, I probably wouldn't ride my motorcycle. Let's put it that way. Dave Grunkley, as a small old guy, says he's 5'6", 175, 58 years old. With a lifetime of off-road riding and racing, I'm having a hard time building confidence on my off-road on my KTM 1090R. It's big. Any tips appreciated? Setups or modes? Oh, you don't want to come to my riding school and learn the best thing to do. I can tell you every mode known to man, and it's not going to help until you figure out that, number one, the reason you're uncomfortable is because you're out of balance, and the other reason is you're on a big, heavy bike that has a hard time getting traction. So those are the two problems. And if you just sit back and analyze it, and I don't know how to make your balance any better. I don't know which mode to put it in to get that, but run the KTM dongle. That way you can, whatever mode you put it in, when you turn your key off, it stays back on. On our YouTube channel, we have a whole setup thing on what I do to my KTM 1090. I suggest you do everything exactly like I did, because I have the best KTM 1090 in the world. Oh, wait, no, you probably won't want to put the tall seat on it. So I run a tall seat in mine, and I'm 5'8" on a good, now I guess I'm 5'10", maybe 5'10" on a good day. And I have a short inseam, and I run a tall seat on my adventure bike because I don't want to ride around with my feet on the ground, and so that's going to just throw everything out the window. But watch that video. That'll answer the questions on the setups and modes. But in reality, it's a big, heavy adventure bike. It's never going to feel as good as a dirt bike. And the problem with the adventure bikes is they mask your out of balance-ness for quite a long time before they throw it back in your face. A small dirt bike, your weight is so much more influential on what when you move on the small dirt bike, it reacts. When you move on an adventure bike, it takes forever to react to it until it starts going, and then it's going the wrong way, and then you don't have enough weight to bring it back in line. And that's the problem that people tend to find on adventure bikes, is because when they're moving and everything's good, you've got a lot of weight going in the right direction. They feel stable, they feel comfortable, and then the minute they're not in the right direction, you're going to have a big problem on your hands that it's a fight you can't win. So I don't know. Get good tires. Run a decent, a 50/50 type knobby on it at all times. A Kenda Big Block is the tire I suggest all the time. Continental TKC80, Michelin Anarchy Wilds. Those are about the 3 tires that I would run for dual sport adventure riding, period. If you find the one that gets like twice the mileage, guess what? It's made out of cement, not rubber. And someone else wanted me to comment on the particulate silicone content matter inside of tires, and I'm not going to go there. You have to get me a tire expert in here that can talk about that stuff. I don't know. I just know what works and what doesn't work. Marty Small asks, what are your thoughts on Steg pegs? So Steg pegs are these interesting things that kind of bolt on. Usually it's literally like a rubber knob or a peg that kind of goes on the lower part back behind your legs on the side panel, kind of near the side panel. And they're designed so that you have something to grip onto when you start rocking back on the bike. They can be positioned differently, but and I don't have a whole lot of experience with them. When I tried them, I did not like them. And it's not to say that they're good or bad. It's just, for me, they didn't do what they, I guess what they're supposed to do. Because I found that when I would want to get back, let's say I'm going down a downhill and I wanted to get back, they would actually get in the way of me moving my feet, back on the foot pegs and dropping my ankles down and doing the stuff that I do. And then just sometimes they would awkwardly catch it at the wrong times. They would kind of be in the way. So, but I have had other riders tell me that they help them hang onto the motorcycle. They make it so that they can grip onto the motorcycle. In my very idealized way about thinking of how you should ride, you should be balanced on your foot pegs and therefore kind of anticipate what you're going to do at the bike. So in theory, you're not going to get thrown off. It needs something like that to kind of grab you. And I hang on with my ankles a lot more. So maybe that's why I can get away with it. I don't try to hang on like with my knees or with my calves. And I think if they were infinitely adjustable, you could probably find a spot that they would work really good. But for me, they didn't work out all that well. So it's one of those products. They're out there for the reason, because somebody found that helped them work or make them be able to ride better, and that's why they're there. And if you think if you find yourself sliding off the back of your bike, you can't hang on. They make ribbed seats and all different kinds of things. Some people put a lot of grip tape on the side of their bike. There's actually graphics kits there's a company called Stomp. They made snowboard grip tape that people used to stick on the side of their bikes to hang on to it. So a lot of different options there. I think, it's, that's what I think about them. I don't have a ton of experience. I have tried them, but I don't have a ton of experience with them. Logan Rasco is asking, what are your thoughts on the Dakar rally moving to Saudi Arabia? Interesting. I think it's good. All politics aside, and I don't understand a lot of that, and I don't try not to pay too much attention to that. But they are going to have a lot more true, like, African desert, situations, availability out there compared to, I think in South America, it was just the population was too dense. And you saw it in the race. The race was slowly getting shorter and shorter. The racing stages were getting shorter and shorter. The transfer sections were getting longer and longer. And it was kind of getting challenging over there. And I'm sure, there's a lot of money involved and sponsors and kind of different things. And I know that the Kingdom of Saudi is really trying to improve their public relations image, and having, a world-class rally like that over there is probably pretty good. We'll see how all the laws and different things kind of play out in that environment. What's going to be allowed. And I was actually talking with Daniel Laporte today, and we were just kind of talking about old Dakar, because we miss the African aspect of Dakar, where you literally start your stage in the morning right outside of the bivouac and ride 800K without having to, do any transfers and stuff. It was race from the moment you got up in the morning till you arrived at the finish line, and you wouldn't see a soul and no spectators. And so, I think it's going to be good. We've started looking at maps over there, and they have a lot of different varying terrain. I'm sure it's a lot of sand. Having raced in Dubai and the United Arab Emirates before, I know what the empty quarter looks like, because part of that is actually in the country of Dubai. So, and that can make some good racing. So, it'll be interesting. I'm sure I think there's a press conference on the 25th where they're gonna start announcing more stuff, but a lot of it's speculation right now. I mean, they've announced they're going there, and they've announced they're going there for 5 years. So that's about all we really know. They've shown some brilliant pictures, and from people I've talked to who have lived there and been there, they say there's no question. There's definitely desert out there. So it'll be pretty cool. I think. I hope it kind of goes back to where it came from. So next, here we go. I'm on to my San Felipe Bob questions. Hey Bob, you out there? You out there answering my questions on the side? You doing sidebars? Because I can't pay attention right now. I'm sure he's handling it. So Bob, how much time have you spent camping off the grid on your motorbike? A fair amount, enough to know that if I'm on an adventure bike, I take a really big tent and a thick air mattress, and I do it luxury on that. And then, of course, I've done stuff like the Tour of Idaho, where it was, all my stuff was in a giant loop, literally a little tiny thin, tube sock laying around the back of my KTM 500. So I've spent plenty of time doing it. What is your must-have list for bike camping? A thick mattress on the adventure bike, big tent. Yeah. Let's see. Do you pack all your gear on your bike, or do you wear backpack and distribute the weight? On Tour of Idaho, yeah, I had a backpack. And it was, I tried to keep the backpack as light as possible. And there's definitely a few companies that are making stuff for that. On the Tour of Idaho, I used a giant loop. Currently, I'm using a lot of the Wolfman packs, because they're a little more modular, and they have they have a newer system that I'm actually testing right now that has like kind of this base that kind of hooks on the bike, and then you can attach different packs to it. So that is kind of an advantage when you're trying to, segment your stuff, but it's all just dependent, getting comfortable with you got to figure out what you need, what you're trying to accomplish, and then, figure out what you got to do to pack it. Most people, in my opinion, in my experience, overpack, take way too much stuff. And I will tell you the tricks. It is really simple. Pack your heavy stuff down low and as far forward as you can get it. That's the trick. So, okay. And Bob likes to say that he has a giant lube bag that works great on his old WR 450. So let's do that one there. Plug for giant loop. Let's see. George Justice, what tools do you carry for trail riding? Most interesting trail side fixes. I'm going to pass on this question right now, because what I need to do is I actually need to walk over there and grab my gear bag and just take it apart on the table right in front of you and show you what I have. But unfortunately, since I've been on 16 different bikes over the past few months, I've been throwing tools in and out of it. It's a mess. I've got too much stuff in there, and then not the probably things that I need. And I'll think about the trail side fixes. I've done quite a bit of those over the years. Usually it involves quick steel, beer cans, hose clamps. Man, and there's some cool new stuff. Just in the last few years, some of the silicone, the rubberized. I just bought some last night. I bought quick steel and some of that stretchy siliconized tape that you can literally fix radiator hoses and stuff with on the fly. And those are two things I always like to carry with me, is the quick steel, and then that bonding tape it'll fix lots of stuff. So I'll work on that. And maybe we'll do a little show based kind of on trailside tools and fixes and things like that. So Martin Hackworth. Martin is the inventor of the Tour of Idaho. And he asked me the question. He says, I'm on Robber's Roost and I have a loose wire. What do I do? It kind of tails off the last question. You know what, Martin? You quit the Tour of Idaho. You flap your arms up and down, push the help button beacon on your DeLorme InReach, and hope somebody comes and saves you. That's what I would do. Wait, I didn't do that. I tore my bike apart, figured out that my ECU came unplugged, and you can watch it on the Tour of Idaho video. That's up on our on Dirt Bike Test too. So that's a good way to waste an hour or 45 minutes of your time, and it's inspirational. You'll want to go ride your dirt bike across Idaho, unsupported, with GPS track logs. Okay. Christian Renninger. I'm great with names. So as a follow-up to last week's question on PDS versus Link, I picked up a 2015 Husky FE350S. What's the wisdom on the 4CS forks for dual sport desert single track do-it-all bike for an experienced but not a racer guy? It says, seems the forks have some love-hate across everything I read. Well, that bike, does it have the 4CS? Did the Husky? I'm pretty sure it does. I mean, I don't think he'd be asking the question if it didn't. I can't remember specifically. I don't think that they had gone to the, because if it's an FE, I don't know if they were open cartridge. I think that may have been the upgrade, because they had the linkage shot, the linkage suspension, and then they had the 4CS fork. We may have tested that bike, or we tested a Husky. I don't know. Maybe it's the FC or FX or one of them. I know we tested one, or at least we did some stuff. So here's the thing about that fork. I think it definitely kind of got a bad rap, sort of like Air Forks did. It wasn't the best fork out there, so everybody starts just chewing it apart and beating it up. And it was interesting, because I think it progressively got better. Like everything as it evolved, it got better. There are guys out in the suspension world that'll sell you 20 different kits that have everything from, nothing in them to beautiful billet anodized replacement parts that do different things. But before you start complaining about your fork, I want you to tell me what it does wrong. Like, what are you feeling? What's the problem with it? Just because some journalist someplace said it was bad, then that's usually not the answer. And most of the time, those journalists that said it was bad never took the time to turn the clickers, take the air out of it, make any sort of adjustments. Maybe even something as simple as setting the ride height in the bike to compensate for the feeling or counteract the feeling they're getting from the fork. There's a lot of stuff you can do. I always found there's two things that I remember about 4CS forks that just without ever taking them off the bike, there's two things you can do that can change the way that they work. Number one is you have to understand that the compression and specifically the compression adjuster works more like a mid-speed valving change than a low speed. So you're not going to get that, you're not going to be able to change the initial feel of the fork with the clicker that much. I mean, it will a little bit, but not that much. So what we were tended to do was we would either add air or most of the time take air out of the fork. So we would run like a negative pressure inside of that fork. So you'd actually open the bleed screw up, or I usually had the Motion Pro adjusters on it, and I'd compress the fork down a little bit and then bleed the air off, and then it had a little bit of a negative pressure on there. And you could get the fork to actually be pretty supple, even though they kind of inherently in that design had a little more stiction than some of the other forks out there. But with a negative, a little bit of negative pressure in there, you could get them to start moving a little bit better. And then they were also pretty picky to oil height. So that's where now we're getting inside of it. But if you play with that understand that the compression adjuster is a mid-speed adjuster, and realize that if you start, and then sometimes we found that if you went stiffer on it, sometimes it held it up in the stroke and made it initially softer. The complaints typically were that the fork was a little bit harsh. So hopefully that kind of answers the question. And then also think about the ride height of the bike. If you want it to be a little bit, sometimes you can just change, 5, 4, 3 millimeters in the back, up and down, can change the way that bike rides on that front end and how it feels. And it's little stuff like that. And get them serviced. So ride your bike for 10, 15 hours and get your fork serviced, and and especially if it's a good shop that's going to do it, they'll make sure that the seals have grease on them, they're lubed up, they'll put a good consistent oil in them, and you'll be in good shape. Hopefully set the ride height or the oil height properly, and if you find they bottom, add a little bit more oil, or if you want to be a little bit more soft, take a little bit of oil out from whatever the standard level is, and make sure they check that the bike had standard level in it, because we've also seen bikes with different levels inside of them. So hopefully that answers that question, Christian. And maybe you can get me a follow-up when you do that. Let me know how it works out, because I'd really like to know. I mean, before you run off to the guy who has the $900 fix or some other parts that you're throwing into him. Because until you ask the question that says, hey, I want my forks to do this, and you go, oh, then you're going to have to change that part. You don't need those. Let's see. Brian C. England. How about a story about your best nurse it back to the truck field fix? So here we go. I think this is we're just gonna have a Jimmy rigged podcast for all the stuff that I rigged, all this stuff. Let's see. He says leather shoestrings and clutches, Allen wrenches clamped to busted shifters. What did you do? Look at my Instagram feed? Vice grips on throttle cables. Never done that. Yeah. So stuffed his jersey in a bunch of twigs and grass under the tire, and rode it in like that. I've done most of those things. Yep. I don't know what my best one is. Like I said, I'll think about that. It seems like we're getting onto a little bit of a theme here. So what I'm going to do now is switch over to see if I can see what the questions were popping up here. Let's see. Bob's running the chat room. He's got the chat room on point. I can see some of the answers. Let's see. I can't. I know why, because I have to go like that. I don't know what my best one is. Oh, jeez. That's why I had the volume shut off. You're going to get feedback. There we go. This is where you go grab another beer when you watch me start fumbling with the. Oh, jeez. That's why I had the volume shut off. You're going to get feedback. How do I shut that off? Yeah, now I've got a whole thing open here. Just shut the sound off. That beer. See, the delay. Now I'm all confused because I'm watching my own delay. Yeah, now I've got a whole thing open here. Just shut the sound off. This is where I need a producer. The delay. Now I'm all confused because I'm watching my own delay. Okay. Hold on. This is the only way to fix this problem. No, I know the sound is good. I can see that. I can't mute my This is the only way to fix this problem. Mute my. How about that? Function F10. There. I think I just fixed it. Yeah. Watch me. Not a computer guy. I hope all you computers are just laughing your ass off at what I just did. I got a beer assistant. That's right, Martin. Okay, we're back on the thing. I'm gonna kind of swing back up the comments and see where we're at here. Let's see. Everybody wants to know trail fixes. I'm gonna send that whole thing to another show. Okay. Yeah, there's not a ton of questions there. It's just idle chitter chatter on the forums. So what I'm going to talk about next is our 2019 Yamaha WR 450 that I have been playing with today. We've been playing with it for the last few days. The cool thing is I'm pulling my phone here to get my notes because I weighed it today. So there's two numbers everybody wants to know. How fast is it? And what does it weigh? Those are the two questions. So I know the answers to those. So today on the dry lake bed, I'm actually going to throw this out there. How fast do you think it went? And then how much do you think it weighs? Just go ahead and start just throwing those comments out there. So I'm doing math right now because I know what the front and rear wheels are. Okay. So the weight is, I'm going to say, if you watched the Instagram live feed, you saw exactly how fast it went. So the weight is 264.5 pounds with a full tank of gas. So if you guess that, actually maybe I'll see who. You know what? I'm gonna go through this comment thing when I get off the air here, and I am going to get the best comment or question will get a Dirt Bike Test T-shirt or hat, and I will reach out to you on a direct message or Insta Messengram or just a Facebook Messenger. I'll find you that way and get that. So, and the top speed was 100. It just tapped 100 miles an hour. So it was kind of basically sitting at 97 most of the time. So there might have been a slight gust of wind or something that gave it a little bit of a hand. And the way we have it set up right now, it's pretty much what we'll call it kind of stock. So the Yamaha comes very corked up. We all know this. It comes with a throttle stop in it. Of course, that's gone. It has an intake restrictor for noise. Of course, that's not in there anymore. And since our bike is now a competition bike, we have the GYTR competition ECU in it. And the thing that's really cool about it is it allows us to use the Yamaha Power Tuner app. And if you have paid attention to us in the future or past with the YZ450 and now the YZ250 and the YZ450FX, this is really awesome. So we've been playing around with all of our different maps and tuning with it, and of course we're still running with the stock exhaust, which is, it's not completely stock. There's a little teeny tiny pea shooter that's been taken out, but it's still really quiet, and so we're just getting a map kind of set up for that, which actually isn't that hard because Yamaha gave us the map that they recommended for it, and it's really good. So and where it puts that bike is now it's when you take the throttle stop and the airbox restrictor out, and you take the little tiny pea shooter out, it's about the same as a Honda 450X. The Honda might have a little bit more kind of up on it just in stock, if we're going to call that stock. But the big change really is now we have that power tuner in it, and now we're able to adjust things for a freer flowing exhaust, which is what we're going to get our hands on. We're trying to get the GYTR one right now, and we'll see how that goes. But because of the power tuner app, we don't have to buy any other accessory stuff. Now we can do all of that tuning, and we're not just tuning fuel, we can also tune ignition. So it's kind of a step up from, let's say, like a JD jetting tuner. It's more like a vortex ignition, and Yamaha's definitely built some parameters into it that make it so that you're not going to screw your bike up. And another kind of cool thing is, well, it's good or bad. So it also, another piece you can buy is you can buy a map switch. So it's a 2-position map switch, or it's just a button. It's an LED button that if you push it, you're in map 2, and you push it back, you're in map 1, and it's on the fly. It's like it's supposed to be. You don't have to stop or, rub your belly and pat your head. You don't have to do anything funny you just push the button and it switches the map. And they have kind of the standard, the map number 1 is always what we call a standard map, and map number 2 on this one is like a mellow map, where it's I'm trying to think of the wording they used for it, like a difficult conditions. I don't remember what the thing was. So it's a less aggressive map, and that's programmed in the base map that's underneath whatever you change, so it never changes. I kind of wish they were both that they were both the same, because what I was doing today is I was trying to make a tuned map that would kind of make the maps the same, would get rid of some of the hesitation that the map number 2 has all the time. It seems like it's a little less responsive, and it's kind of flat for the first third to maybe half throttle. And so I was trying to make a map that would make them identical, so I knew how I would have to boost every map if I wanted them to be the same. So that's kind of where we're at right now, and when we get a little bit farther on that, that's the kind of level we test this stuff. I think I just saw something fly across the screen. Can you buy this in California? Yes, if you're going to turn your bike into a closed course competition bike, you absolutely can buy it. The GYTR ECU. So and then you just, like right now, if somebody pushed the start button on our bike, I could talk to it. So I was talking to the bike with the phone. It takes however long it takes you to make the map, but it takes about 15 seconds at the most to send a new map to the bike, and then you can kind of play around with it. We will have some of our best maps. We'll take pictures of them and show them to you, and I think we can even share them. It's there's a way. I don't know if I forgot if you do it through email. I know I can share them between the machines on my app, but I think you can email them. Let me see. Actually, I can go right into the app here and find out. Let's see. Go to maps. Go here, and if I slide it like that, share. And what does it say? Share. Oh yeah, I can send it as a message. I can send it in mail. I can save it to a file. It's pretty cool. That's the future right there. I don't talk to anybody on my phone, but I talk to my motorcycles now. So hopefully that helps people with that question. So overall, what do I think of the bike? I like it. I don't know for out here. I was riding it out here in Pahrump, and it's pretty, fast, more deserty kind of stuff. I don't know if it's better than the Honda at this kind of stuff, but once you start getting in more technical, like if I was going to be riding in first, second, third, maybe a little bit of fourth gear, I would choose the Yamaha, I think, all the time. But once you start going third, fourth, fifth gear riding, fourth, fifth, sixth gear riding, then the Honda kind of comes into its own. So they have different characters. They're definitely, it's a lot like we talked about on our 250 comparison. They have some traits and characteristics that it's good we have variety and changes. I don't know whether it's good or bad. You kind of have to decide what you're gonna use the bike for. But the changes they made, like we wrote in our kind of first impression, the changes they made to that bike are spectacular. And on the previous version WR, I would hardly ever recommend it to anybody over the FX. And now it's a viable option. If you want a bike with headlights and you want an enduro, more of an enduro type tuning to the ECU, you want more of a enduro compliance on the suspension, and they kind of hit a home run on all those fronts. So it's actually pretty good. We will, like I said, we're kind of in the middle of testing it, and I want to do a little bit of modifications before we write the complete test, because I want to see how it responds to those, because most guys will do those kinds of changes to them anyway. So it's part of our thing. So let's see. When in doubt, Jimmy, resort to one of my soapboxes. So Jesse, you didn't think I was pissed off there at my computer? So, yeah, I was pissed at the computer. What else do we have on the agenda today? Why didn't Yamaha release a street legal version? Wow. Um, I'm not Yamaha, so I can't answer that, but I suspect if you see, actually, just take a really good close look at a Honda CRF 450L and then look at the CRF 450X, and you see how different those two bikes are. There's kind of the same base core thing, and then you look at how KTM does it. You look at the KTM EXC versus like an XC, and they're different because of the chassis with the suspension and stuff like that. And it's just that the Japanese companies don't seem to want to do it the way that KTM is doing it, using so many of the same parts. And I don't know if it's just cultural. I don't know if it's just legal. I don't know. I can't imagine, because there's been nothing wrong with copying in the past to do stuff, but there's tons and tons of regulations, and it's kind of how these companies interpret them. And with all that stuff that went on with some of the emissions things that VW went through a few years ago, and I mean, I know that any of these car manufacturers, they're scared to death of having bad stuff happen, and you as a dirt bike rider are asking for a light, agile, nimble, high performance machine, but it still has to meet the same requirements that a Harley has to meet, for instance. And so it's a tough row to hoe, and we'll see, we'll see what happens. It doesn't mean that Yamaha couldn't do that. But as you've seen in the past, if you look at like the WR250 and then the other WR250 or the YZ250, kind of that platform, but the WR250, the one that is a true dual sport bike, it's its own animal. It's a completely different bike. It doesn't share anything with the YZ or WR 4-stroke, or it's confusing because it is called a WR. It's a WR 250R and a WR 250X, I believe, were the two models that they had. One was more of like a super motard type styling to it. So I think they just have a different philosophy on it, and if they're going to build a street bike, it's going to be its own animal. They're not going to take a YZ and build it that way. And that kind of runs back to another question I was asked: would you speculate if a new Honda CRF 250X 6-speed is coming? I would speculate no, just based on that. The reason there's a 450X now is because there's a 450L. They saw a need to make a dual sport 450, and Honda already has a 250L, and they have a 250F, and I don't think you're going to see them try to develop some whole new like high performance 250 on road bike, which would allow a 250X. So I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't know that. And it's funny, we talk about the 6-speed and how much it helps a lot of bikes and stuff, but it really depends on what you're doing with the bike, whether you need a 6-speed transmission. It's it's picky. You have to. You can gear your 5-speed and kind of, if you're going to go more, most of the time you're going to go faster. It's when you want to ride like, really fast stuff and then go do extreme enduro on the same trail ride. That's when you run into issues with your 5-speed. But for most people, they can get away with a 5-speed, but it sure is nice to have that, it's a convenience to have a 6-speed, but to ask a manufacturer to design a whole new motor, to accommodate that extra gear in the transmission means that engine better have some legs on it, and they're going to be able to sell a lot of those things to kind of set apart the cost. So hopefully that answers that question as well. Let's see where we're at on the questions over here. So everybody's answering the 100-mile-an-hour question after I said the thing. Okay, so the next we need a really good question here. I'm running low. Yeah, Bob. Okay, so everybody just to announce it, San Felipe Bob is a Yamaha guy. Okay, uh, Robert Walker, who's also in the chat room there. Robert is a Honda guy. Yeah, it's kind of like I am a Husaberg. No, I don't like them anymore. I like KTM's. Um, so, and I get that question all the time. Like you're just a Honda guy. That's all you do is ride Hondas. All you do is say good things about KTM's. So I am brand ambidextrous. I've coined that word. It's my own. I don't care. I just want to have a really good motorcycle underneath me. I don't care who makes it. I don't care what color it is. I don't even care what gear I'm wearing, by the way, because I don't have to look at myself. So, yeah. So you guys enjoy your debates about which bike is best. I am going to. I know what I was going to talk about. You know what I did. You know what I did today? For the first time in 10 years. 10 years, I wore Alpine Star Tech 7 boots. And these are a lot of people's favorite boots. It's one of those things that I think Alpine Stars hates it because they make this really nice Tech 8 and they make this really nice Tech 10 and everybody just goes, I want a Tech 7. I'm just going to say Tech 7. So I hadn't had them for a while, so I got a set. And here they are. Yeah, brand new today. And I can see why you guys really like these boots. They are. I have to go do the research, see what they cost, and get the whole 9 yards out about them. But I was surprised that they didn't require very much break-in. I mean, right away when I put them on, they felt a little bit stiff. But 10 minutes after I was riding, I didn't notice the boots. But I will tell you something that because I wear a lot of different boots. The one thing that besides fit, and everybody has their own thing, and that's one thing about that boot is, man, it just fit really nice. It wasn't tight any place. It had padding in all the right spots. It doesn't have any weird hinges or booties, or it's just a good standard boot. But what I find is once you say, okay, this boot fits my foot, the other thing that I notice is the way that the sole is constructed and where it puts your heel and the angles that your foot is sitting at in the footbed is quite a bit different on a lot of different boots. And it was when I was riding the Yamaha, I'm going, man, I feel kind of cramped in this bike. And I realized that the Alpine, and I remembered, oh wait, I'm not wearing my usual boot. I usually wear CD boots. It's just it's a personal preference. They fit my feet, and I like the stiffest sole possible that I can have because I don't want my foot to flex and bend. So I like the CD SRS boots, which are way too stiff for most people, but I love them. And I don't want to say for most people, they're really stiff. But what I noticed with the Alpine Stars and also with the Fox boots is that the heel is a lot higher. It feels like my heel's up a little bit. And so when I go to sit down on a motorcycle, it makes my legs fold up a little bit more, and it folds me up a little bit more like tent sticks. And so I was like, is that a problem with the bike, or is it the gear I'm wearing? And so you see how one thing leads to affect another and different things like that. But I kind of had to refresh my memory on that and on those boots. And like I said, now I've heard people. I never disputed that those were good boots. And I think the last time I wore them was actually I raced with a set in Dakar in '97. I think we wore Tech 7s. Yep. How long ago was that? Do the math. How many years is that? So it's more than 10. 20 years. Yeah, I must have worn some at some other point in between there, but that's I'm actually remembering back. That's the last time I had them. So that's one of the other things we're kind of messing around with is the boots. And another product we've been testing, I talked about this a few weeks ago. This is the Scot Dust Goggle, and it is kind of it's designed for desert or dual sport riding. And the reason I know about this is because back when I was racing Dakar way back in the day, they gave us special goggles that they literally had a different foam, a thicker foam in there, so that wind and so the dust couldn't get in, and so that the wind wouldn't dry your eyes out. It had a really good no fog in it, and it actually had Gore-Tex on the inside of the liner, and it was a very expensive goggle, something you could get. Scott makes a lot of really cool stuff over in Europe that you can't get here, but this is the Prospect version of it, and they've done that now. They've put different foam in there to kind of help with the wind, and I'm really impressed with this goggle. If you're a dual sport guy riding, especially when it starts getting a little bit warmer, when that hot, dry air goes in there and starts drying your eyes out and stuff, pretty stoked on the performance of that particular goggle. Thought I'd bring that up so everybody remembers or knows a little bit about it. If you have stuff that you would like to see us test, let us know. We can usually get some of that to use. Call Rob for computer help. He does GPS as well. Yeah, I remember that. I remember, see, Rob helped me on the Rebel Rally every night when I would come in. I was the course director, and I come in and I need to distribute the track logs out in 16 different formats to everybody on their different device and stuff like that. So I'm looking for the price on the goggle. I saw somebody just kind of it's not a cheap goggle, but it's not out of line. It's it's a big frame, so it would make it a little bit glasses compatible. That might help. I don't know if I have the notes from that one time I brought it in there. No, nope. No. Buy DBT shirts. I see a note from last time. Buy DBT shirts. Go on dirt bike test. Goggles. Hold on. Here we go. Oh, Scott Prospect Sand Dust, $89. See, I knew I had it in there someplace. And Bob is over here having a heart attack for $89 goggles. The guy, you just slice open the mattress, and then when money comes flying out, the money that you put in there a long time ago, it'll come flying out. You just grab a few of them and take them down to your local dealer and get some goggles. Eric Holt, if a rear moose goes bad, will it change the rear suspension feel to harsh and swap in a whip section? If a rear moose goes bad, your suspension feeling is the least of your problems. But they do change where they alter, as they, and it depends on the brand how they start degrading. It's funny because some of them tend to kind of they tend to roll off to the side when they start wearing out, and then some of them almost get more springy. I'm not sure exactly why or how, but maybe it is actually the rim of the the tire and the rim kind of hitting the ground or smashing through the bump. Those but it will change. A moose really does affect the way your suspension works and how it feels, and it's different from an air tire. So yes, that will. It didn't change anything. It seems to have gotten harsh in the rocks and the hoops. Hopefully you're thinking about replacing that because they usually don't get harder. That's the thing. The moose rarely gets harder, but maybe it's getting soft enough so now you're actually feeling the rim hit the thing. So somebody's surprised that the feed is actually still up and running strong. Yeah, that's what happens when you get to the internets that aren't in a bar with slot machines and ATM. We think the ATM was sucking up all of our bandwidth. We were actually trying to suck up money out of the ATM, but it didn't work out. So we miss you, Janie, over there at Ramiro's. We'll go back for a long time. Yeah, we'll see you Thursday, but we'll go back. We'll break that place back in one of these times. I think that's it. We're kind of running up on our hour. I don't see any other last minute questions flying across the thing. It's like I said. I'm going to go through and find the question may not have been asked yet, by the way, the good question, because I'm going to pull some of the stuff that's on that feed right now for next week's questions. I will send out a T-shirt to the best one that I can find in there. Maybe it's the best smart ass comment. Who knows? Check our different feeds. Look at our Instagram feed, and you can see me go 100 miles an hour. You can watch us on the YouTubes. We put this back up on YouTube. We edit it down, so I don't even know if I'll go in and take out the part where I'm just punching on the keys. We have a Twitter account. Somebody tweet at us. Tweet at us. I might answer that. And then I think other than that, you can find us right here on Facebook every once in a while. But most of all, go check out dirtbiketest.com. That's the homepage. That's the base where all this information kind of gets delivered to. And we're trying to give that thing a big push here, getting some more content up. There's a new story on what we would do to the 2019 Suzuki RMZ 450. We got a RMZ 250 test coming up. We've been doing some Suzukis back in California. I haven't. I'm going to try to get my KTM 350 test all done, as well as this Yamaha WR 450. And that's about all we have. So thank you for tuning in. Thanks for all the questions. We will keep in touch. And I'll see you next week at the same bat time. Ciao.